Okay, yeah.
Hello. Today we are here with John Meade, and he is running for LD 22, position 1. Johnny, would you please just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Johnny Meade, and I'm running for LD22, position 1. I am a working class father who is really just fed up with the way that our system has left working people behind. And I want to make sure that moving into the next session, into the next legislature, that we are focusing and centering working people and ensuring that they're not bearing the brunt of any sort of cuts that move forward, as they already are. The governor furloughed, a large group of state workers right now who aren't working any less. A lot of them, they just are getting, not getting paid. And we really need to tax our largest corporations in the state, who are profiting off of the COVID-19 crisis, in order to fund what needs to happen to protect the working people and working families of our state moving forward. Um, and we have the resources in this state to do it. It just really takes the political will to do it. And right now I feel like the two parties, they're in bed with corporate interests, and we need to make a break from it. So that's what I'm attempting to do.
Very good. So tell us what your plan is to do. You have some COVID relief efforts that you're thinking about doing. Walk us through that thought process.
Yeah, so when we move in the next couple months, we're putting together plans for what schools are going to look like in the next year. And there's a big push at the federal level in order to force children back into the classrooms. But the OSPI office is they're closed. The All the state offices are closed because the state recognizes that there's no safe way to allow people into a confined space during a pandemic. So if we close the schools when we first started getting cases, then now when our cases have spiked up higher than they've ever been, we're talking about bringing the children back into the classroom. So there's are some plans for social distancing, and there are some moves that that the school districts are trying to make and trying to come up with a plan. And everybody's trying to do their best, but what's going to happen is that wealthier districts that can afford larger buildings and temporary structures, they'll be able to meet the demand to do social distancing, while districts that are smaller, that are often historically made up of marginalized people, are not going to get those same resources. And so the existing inequities in education are going to just be exacerbated. So in order to stop this from happening, and to protect our children, and our teachers. And I mean, who wants to, go into this confined space? How are you supposed to get children to follow social distancing protocols, wear masks all the time? It's just such and then deal with the psychological impact of that. And it only takes one kid to shut the entire thing down. So what we need to do, we need immediate emergency education relief. We can institute emergency mandates for broadband internet access, and provide laptops to every student in the state. We can do emergency declarations that we can either use existing infrastructure, because in a lot of places there is already that existing broadband infrastructure, whether it's operated by like NOAAnet, where they use it to monitor the electrical grid, and then they end up renting out some of those fiber optic lines to Comcast, who then sells it to you. So what we can do is just immediately provide that to people for the for the purpose of meeting the state's constitutional mandates on education. We had we are one of the only states that has the need to fully fund education in our state constitution. So this is just part of that. We need to utilize the state's authority to take the infrastructure that is already belonging to the people of the state and use it for the purposes of protecting our children, educating them, making sure that they have a steady presence in their home. And in the areas where that infrastructure is not there, because it's not necessarily a fiber optic network across the board, we can subsidize and partner with existing ISPs, CenturyLink or Comcast, and just make sure that those students get those resources, and that we're able to put something together where there's that sense of permanence. I'm going to school, I'm getting dressed, I'm getting up, and here is a coherent day for me, that it really will help for the mental well-being of children across the state, and also it's for just the working people across the state. It's not a luxury to have the internet. It's clearly a public utility, and so we need to start to change the code so that municipalities will be able to take back the infrastructure that they have paid for already, and use it to to social distance safely, to just have what is a necessity in the 21st century. And so it's going to help us with education, it's going to help us with social distancing safely, but aside from the broadband education, we need to ensure that in this time where the economy is so volatile and everybody is out of work, you can't really have a steady educational environment if kids aren't getting the nutritional their nutritional needs met. So we need to, or if their parents are getting evicted, or now they're houseless. So it needs to be a interconnected working class bailout that addresses that we're about to come into a houselessness crisis, as hundreds of thousands of people aren't going to be able to meet their rent payments in the following month, or they didn't make them this month, and we need to increase for the people that are able to go out there and work without having schools there. There's no way for them to get to work and have somebody watching the kids. So we need to increase funding for childcare as well. So there's really there's so much that needs to be done. And moving into the next session, they're looking at a budget shortfall. There's a budget crisis. So they're going to be looking at things that potentially are going to be cut, and we need to make sure that that's we're not cutting things that impact the working people of our state, and we find alternative methods of funding, because it just takes the political will to do it. Somebody needs to stand up to Amazon and say, it's time for you to contribute to the state that you have profited off of. Yeah.
And then, so you sort of touched on that in there, but like how I saw on your website that you talked about a statewide living wage, and then you sort of talked about a different way of calculating that because would you just tell us a little bit about that?
Um, yeah. So um, I've been involved. One of the first political fights that I was involved in was when I was growing up back in Florida. I worked with a housing advocacy organization on raising the minimum wage in the state of Florida, and we got a big victory and raised it to $6.15 an hour from the previous 5.15, which is I think what my first job when I first got onto the employment market was. So you know by the time we win these struggles, we're already behind. So like with the fight for 15, $15 an hour is not really, if in some places it would be a living wage, but if you live in Seattle, certainly not a living wage. So and even here in Olympia, Tumwater, Lacey, $15 an hour is not going to get you very far. Um, so we need to make sure that the that we institute a living wage, a statewide living wage, but that it's not frozen in place, that it's dynamic, and it's tracked to the cost of living and inflation and productivity within municipalities. So we can, it could be tracked at the state level. I think it would make more sense to have that tracked at the county level, so that you have a different living wage if you are, say, in Eastern Washington than you would have if you live in downtown Seattle, because we have to account for that somehow. But we want to make sure that wherever somebody's living, if they're working, or if they're unable to work, that they are um, that their needs are being met, that they are able to live a good existence.
Very good. Um, Thank you for joining us, Johnny. If you would go through one time, tell us where we can get a hold of you, where we can find your campaign, where we can donate. Give yourself one final shameless plug.
Okay. Yeah, so if you're in LD22, the ballots, I received mine today and I got to vote for myself, which was a really, is a good personal moment that I didn't necessarily thought would happen. So that was pretty great. And so their ballots are coming out. August 4th is the primary. If you go to www.jonnyforwa.com, that's JONNYFORWA.com. You can find our platform. We have a Discord where we would love to have volunteers come on. We are having a phone bank event on Saturday, which we definitely need some people to help us with. And then on Twitter, I'm Jonny for Wa on Facebook, and that's JONNYFORWA. I think that we have a real opportunity to push the whole state of Washington in a way that is unprecedented within our lifetime. Or at least that's what I want to do. So I hope that you can help us out with we really need volunteers. We've got some good folks helping us, but I imagine they do too. So
Thank you, Johnny. And hopefully some of the people watching today will look you up and go volunteer.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate it. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.